Can I eat next to you, Daddy? A simple question from a poor girl to a millionaire. Can I eat next to you, Daddy? A simple question asked by a poor girl to a millionaire. No one expected him to respond the way he did. His reaction, unexpected and full of surprises, shocked everyone around. What happened next will move you and show you the true value of empathy. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll hear in your life. The silence of the Golden Palace restaurant contrasted with the noise of the rain hitting the glass windows. Richard Harrison methodically cut his grilled salmon, his movements, as precise as everything else in his life. At 42, he commanded a real estate empire that he had built brick by brick. But at that moment, alone at his reserved table, he felt the familiar weight of the routine he had chosen to embrace. The waiter approached discreetly to remove the barely touched plate when a movement at the entrance caught Richard's attention. A child, soaked from head to toe, was trying to enter the establishment. The doorman, with firm but polite gestures, blocked her passage. The girl couldn't have been more than 9 years old, her dark eyes shining with determination as she pointed to the interior of the restaurant. Richard observed the scene with growing curiosity. The little one wouldn't give up, even under the disapproving gaze of the employee. There was something in her posture, a strange dignity for someone so young and visibly in difficulty. When she finally managed to dodge the doorman and ran in between the tables, Richard realized that she was heading directly toward him. "Please, sir," said the girl, her words coming out in nervous bursts. "I saw you eating alone. Can I eat next to you just for a little while? I won't bother you, I promise." The entire restaurant stopped. Conversation ceased. Cutlery hung suspended in the air. Richard felt dozens of eyes on him, waiting for his reaction. The girl trembled, not just from cold, but from a vulnerability that touched something deep in his chest. "What's your name?" Richard asked, his voice softer than he intended. "Lily," she answered, wiping her nose with the sleeve of her soaked blouse. Richard looked at the almost untouched plate in front of him, then at Lily's hopeful eyes. Without thinking twice, he gestured for her to sit in the chair beside him. "Waiter," he called naturally, "bring another plate, please, and some hot chocolate." What happened next transformed that ordinary night into an indelible memory. Lily ate with the manners of someone who knows how to value each forkful, but also with the urgency of someone who doesn't know when the next meal will be. Between small sips of hot chocolate, she told fragments of her story. The grandmother, who had passed away a few months ago. The father who worked at distant construction sites and only showed up now and then, the nights sleeping in temporary shelters or at acquaintances' homes who soon tired of the situation. Richard listened to every word with growing attention. There was a premature maturity in Lily that moved and disturbed him at the same time. She spoke of life with the acceptance of someone who has already learned that things don't always go as planned, but without bitterness or self-pity. "And you, Mr. Richard, why do you eat alone in such a beautiful place?" asked Lily, turning the question with the natural curiosity of a child. Richard laughed for the first time in weeks. "Good question. I guess I've gotten used to eating alone. It's simpler that way." "Simple doesn't mean better," said Lily with a wisdom that left Richard momentarily speechless. When they finished eating, Richard realized that he didn't want this moment to end. There was something in Lily's presence that broke the mechanical routine of his days. He decided that he couldn't simply let her leave into the rainy night. "Lily, do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated before answering. "There's a lady who sometimes lets me sleep on her couch, but she works overnight and doesn't like noise much." Richard made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "How about coming to my house today? I have plenty of spare rooms and you could take a hot shower, sleep in a real bed." The silence that followed was loaded with possibilities. Lily looked at him with a mixture of hope and distrust, as if she were accustomed to offers that didn't materialize. "Are you sure? I don't want to be a bother." "I'm sure," replied Richard, surprised by his own determination. "And it wouldn't be any trouble at all." The trip to Richard's mansion in Beverly Hills was silent but not uncomfortable. Lily looked out the car window, observing the streets that progressively became more elegant. When they arrived at the property surrounded by high walls and well-maintained gardens, she let out a small sigh of admiration. "It's very big," she murmured. "Too big for just one person," admitted Richard, realizing for the first time how excessive his house might seem. Inside the mansion, Lily moved with the care of someone who doesn't want to break anything. Richard led her to one of the guest rooms, turned on the lights, and showed her where the bathroom was. He brought clean towels, one of his t-shirts that served as an improvised nightgown, and said she could take a bath at her leisure. While Lily was bathing, Richard stayed in the living room, trying to process what he had done. He wasn't an impulsive man. Every decision in his life was calculated, weighed, analyzed, but something about Lily had awakened a protective instinct that he didn't even know he possessed. When she came out of the bath with clean hair falling over her shoulders and wearing his t-shirt that was enormous on her, Richard felt an unexpected tenderness. Lily seemed both younger and more fragile, but there was also a natural dignity in her posture. "Thank you," she said simply, but her words carried a weight of gratitude that made Richard's heart tighten. He tucked her into bed, vaguely remembering having seen parents doing this in movies. Lily snuggled into the soft sheets, like someone embracing a long-awaited gift. "Mr. Richard," she called when he was already at the door. "Yes? Will I still be here in the morning?" The question caught him off guard. There was a naked vulnerability in those words, the experience of someone who had been disappointed before. "You'll be here in the morning," promised Richard, and he knew he was serious. "And for breakfast too, if you want." Lily smiled, a genuine smile that illuminated her tired face. "I want to." That night, Richard could barely sleep. Lying in his king-size bed in the mansion's master bedroom, he thought about the girl sleeping in the room next door. For the first time in years, his house didn't seem like a silent mausoleum, but a home with life pulsing inside it. The next morning, Richard woke up earlier than usual. He went down to the kitchen and, for the first time, prepared an elaborate breakfast himself: pancakes, fresh fruit, natural juice, hot chocolate. When Lily came down, still sleepy but with her eyes shining, she found the table set like a feast. "All this is for me?" she asked, incredulous. "For us," corrected Richard. "I thought we could eat together again." And it was like this, sharing pancakes on a sunny morning, that Richard Harrison discovered that his orderly and predictable life had room for much, more than he had imagined. The following days passed like a waking dream. Richard cancelled meetings, rearranged commitments, and for the first time in decades, put his personal life first. Lily adapted to the mansion's routine with the natural flexibility of someone who has learned to mold themselves to circumstances, but also with a touching care not to be too much of a bother. In the morning, she meticulously arranged the guest room bed, lined up her few belongings with military precision, and came down for breakfast, always offering help. Richard discovered that she knew how to cook scrambled eggs better than any chef he knew, and that her laughter echoing through the corridors completely transformed the atmosphere of the house. "Mr. Richard," said Lily on a Tuesday while helping him wash the breakfast dishes, "you don't need to do all this for me. I know I'm not your responsibility." Richard stopped drying the plate he was holding and looked at her. In recent days, he had caught himself thinking more and more about responsibility, about what it meant to care for someone, about how his life had changed so profoundly in such a short time. "Lily, can I ask you something? Would you like to stay? Here, not for a few days, but forever?" The plate almost slipped from her hands. "Forever? I mean, if you would like to have a family, a real home, we could be a family." Lily was silent for a long moment, her eyes filling with tears that she tried to contain. "Are you serious?" "Very serious. More serious than I've ever been about anything in my life." "And my dad? He sometimes shows up." Richard felt a twinge of something he recognized as jealousy, but that he knew was much more complex. "We'll talk to him. If he agrees, we can do this the right way, legally." Lily nodded slowly, as if she were processing the magnitude of what was being offered. "I would really like to have a real family," she whispered. Then let's make it happen. Decision. Made, Richard dove into the complex world of adoption. With the same determination he applied to business, he hired the best attorneys, specializing in family law, learned about deadlines, documentation, psychological and social evaluations. Each legal consultation revealed new challenges, new requirements. "Mr. Harrison," explained Dr. Mitchell, his lead attorney, "the process won't be simple. We need to locate the biological father, obtain his formal consent, go through thorough evaluations. The justice system is rigorous when it comes to adoption, especially considering the age and social class difference between you." Richard absorbed every word. How long might it take? From 6 months to 2 years, depending on the circumstances, and there's always the possibility of unforeseen events. Unforeseen events. The word echoed in Richard's mind for days. His entire life had been built on predictability, on controlling variables. Now, the most important thing he had ever decided to do depended on factors completely beyond his control. Locating Mike Wilson, Lily's father, took 3 weeks. When they finally found him, working at a construction site in Oakland, the first meeting was tense. Mike was a 40-year-old man, his face marked by the sun and heavy work, distrustful eyes that alternated between Richard and Lily. "She's always been smart," said Mike, observing his daughter with a mixture of pride and guilt. "After it was just the two of us, and after my mother-in-law passed away, it got difficult. Very difficult." Richard kept his voice calm and respectful. "I understand, Mr. Wilson. I'm not here to judge anyone. I just want to give Lily a chance to have stability, education, a secure future." "And you think money solves everything?" The question was direct, without beating around the bush. Richard took a deep breath before answering. "No, it doesn't solve everything, but it can help. And more important than money, I can give time, attention, care. I can be present." Mike looked at Lily, who had been quiet during the entire conversation. "Is this what you want, honey?" Lily nodded, but her voice trembled when she answered, "Dad, I want to have a house where I can always stay, where I can go to school every day, have my books, my bed, but I don't want you to disappear from my life." "I'll never disappear," promised Mike, his voice breaking, "but I need some time to think about all this. It's a very big decision." Richard respected the request, even feeling the anxiety grow. During the weeks of waiting for Mike's answer, the routine with Lily solidified. He enrolled her in a private school nearby, provided appropriate clothing, scheduled medical checkups she had never had. Each day brought small discoveries. Lily loved math but had difficulty with reading, preferred drawing to watching television, had occasional nightmares that made her wake up looking for him. The first crisis came on a Thursday. Richard had been called to an emergency meeting at the company, a problem with a large development that required his immediate presence. When he arrived home 3 hours after the usual time, he found Lily sitting at the entrance of the house, her small backpack on her back. "I thought you weren't coming back," she said, tears flowing freely down her face. Richard knelt in front of her, his heart broken. "Lily, I'll always come back, always. But you were so late, and I thought... I should have called, should have explained. I'm sorry. I'll do it differently next time." That night, Richard made a decision that his partners would consider unthinkable. He delegated the daily management of the company to his vice president. He wouldn't abandon his business, but he also wouldn't let it interfere with what really mattered. Mike's answer came on a rainy Monday, 6 weeks after the first meeting. He showed up at Richard's house without warning, his face serious but determined. "I've made my decision," he said, sitting in the living room while Lily did homework at the dining table. "I'll sign the papers." Richard felt immense relief, but didn't show it. "Are you sure?" "I'll never be completely sure," admitted Mike, "but I know I can't give her what she deserves. And I see how she's different, how she smiles more, how she has plans for the future. That's worth more than my pride." "You'll always be her father," said Richard. "I'll never try to take that place." "Thank you for that." They talked about visits, about how to maintain the bond, about how to explain everything to Lily in a way that she would feel loved by both, not abandoned by one and rescued by the other. When Lily knew of the decision, she cried with relief and happiness, but she also hugged her father tightly, whispering that she loved him and would always love him. With Mike's consent formalized, the legal process accelerated. There were interviews with social workers, psychological evaluations, detailed reports about Lily's adaptation to her new life. Each step was a mixture of hope and anxiety. "How do you feel?" "Living with Mr. Richard?" asked the social worker during a home visit. "Happy," replied Lily without hesitation. "For the first time, I feel at home." Richard, observing from the kitchen while preparing snacks, felt his chest warm. In a few months, his life had gained a purpose that he didn't know was missing. Lily wasn't just a child he had decided to help. She had become the center of his world, the reason why he woke up anxious every morning and went to sleep grateful every night. But, as Richard would soon learn, not all adoption processes follow a linear path. And sometimes when we think everything is on track, life presents us with challenges that test not only our determination, but also our ability to fight for what really matters. The first twist came like a silent earthquake on a Tuesday morning. Richard was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when his phone rang. On the other end of the line, Dr. Mitchell brought news that would make his world shake. "Richard, we have a problem. We've discovered that there's a paternal uncle of Lily's, the father's brother, who technically has legal rights over her. The law requires that he be officially notified about the adoption process." Richard felt his stomach sink. "What uncle?" Mike never mentioned any brother. "Apparently they've been estranged for years. Robert Wilson works as a mechanic in Riverside. According to our records, he's single, no children, and could challenge the process by claiming that biological family has priority. But Lily doesn't even know this man. That doesn't matter legally. We need to notify him and await his response. This could delay everything by months, perhaps a year." When Richard hung up the phone, Lily was at the kitchen door, still in her pajamas, looking at him with concern. "Did something bad happen?" she asked, with the heightened sensitivity of someone who has learned to read danger signs in adults. Richard forced a smile. "Nothing we can't solve, Princess. Just some boring lawyer papers." But Lily wasn't convinced. During the following weeks, she began to show signs of anxiety that Richard hadn't seen since the first days. She went back to obsessively arranging her belongings, checked several times if Richard was really home before going to sleep, and asked indirect questions about whether he still wanted her to stay. The situation worsened when Robert Wilson was finally located. Unlike Mike, who had been understanding and cooperative, Robert was hostile from the first contact. "So that's it," he said during the first meeting at the lawyer's office. "A rich guy decides to play dad, and everyone thinks it's normal." Richard kept calm, but his hands were clenched. "This isn't about playing anything, Mr. Wilson. It's about giving Lily an opportunity to have a stable life." "And who said she can't have a stable life with me? I'm her blood family." "Do you know Lily?" asked Dr. Mitchell diplomatically. Robert hesitated. "We haven't seen each other lately, but that doesn't mean anything. Family is family." What followed were weeks of tension. Robert didn't agree with the adoption, but he also didn't present a concrete plan to care for Lily. He seemed driven more by wounded pride and suspicion than by genuine interest in the girl's well-being. During this period, Richard also faced unexpected pressures in his professional life. Some partners began to question his priorities, especially when he missed a big business opportunity because he was at a consultation with Lily's psychologist. "Richard, you're losing focus," said Helen Rodriguez, his oldest partner, during a tense meeting. "Your feelings are admirable, but we can't let the company suffer." "The company isn't suffering. The results remain positive. For now. But clients are noticing your absence. The market is cruel to signs of weakness." Richard knew that Helen had valid reasons, but for the first time in his professional life, he couldn't prioritize spreadsheets over nightmares, meetings over school meetings. Lily had become his absolute priority, and he wasn't willing to give that up. The tension reached a critical point when a sensationalist report was published in a gossip magazine. "Businessman adopts street girl. Charity or marketing," said the headline, accompanied by photos of Richard and Lily leaving school, taken without authorization. The article insinuated dubious motivations, suggested that it was all just a marketing ploy to improve the company's image, and even raised questions about the appropriateness of a single man raising a girl. The text was venomous, full of half-truths and malicious speculations. Lily saw the magazine at a newsstand when they were returning from the doctor. Richard tried to distract her, but she had already read enough to understand that she was being spoken of in a bad way. "Do people think I shouldn't live with you?" she asked that night, her voice small and insecure. "People sometimes talk without knowing anything," replied Richard, sitting on the edge of her bed. "What matters is what we know, what we feel." "But what if they're right? What if I'm just bringing problems to your life?" Richard felt his heart breaking. "Lily, look at me. You haven't brought problems to my life. You've brought life to my life. Do you understand the difference?" But the damage was done. The report reached the hands of the social worker responsible for the case, who scheduled a new series of evaluations as a precaution. The process, which had been progressing well, went back practically to square one. It was at this moment of greatest pressure that Richard received an unexpected visit. His younger brother Philip appeared at the mansion door on a Friday night. The two hadn't spoken for almost 2 years, since an ugly fight over the division of assets left by their parents. "Heard about the girl," said Philip, without beating around the bush. "Came to see if you've gone completely crazy." Richard sighed. "Hi, Philip, come in, let's talk with civility." Civility? Richard, you're risking the entire family's heritage because of a complete stranger. Do you know what can happen if the process goes wrong? If she turns against you in the future? She won't turn against me. How can you be sure? You've known her for a few months. What if she's just being nice because she needs you now? Richard was about to respond angrily when Lily came down the stairs. She had heard part of the conversation and stopped in the middle of the living room, looking between the two brothers with a hurt expression. "Sorry to bother you," she said quietly. "I just wanted to get a glass of water." Philip looked at her, and Richard saw something change in his expression. The anger gave way to curiosity, then to something that could be recognition. "You must be Lily," he said, his voice softer. She nodded timidly. "Are you Richard's brother?" "I am. Philip. He talks about you sometimes, says you miss each other." The silence that followed was loaded with unsaid emotions. Richard looked at Philip and saw tears in his brother's eyes. Lily got her glass of water and before going up addressed Philip. "If you think I'm going to hurt Richard, you can relax. I would never do that. He saved me, you know. People who save us deserve only good things." After she went up, the brothers remained in silence for long minutes. "She loves you," Philip finally said, "and I love her, more than I thought it was possible to love someone." "I'm sorry, Richard. I came here ready to fight to convince you to give up, but seeing you two together, do you want to get to know her better? Stay for dinner?" Philip nodded, and for the first time in years, the Harrison brothers had dinner together. Lily, initially shy, soon won Philip over with her spontaneity and intelligence. When she went to sleep, Philip helped Richard wash the dishes. "You've changed," observed Philip. "You're more human. She taught me things I didn't even know I needed to learn." "And what will you do if it goes wrong? If the uncle gets custody?" Richard stopped drying the plate and looked at his brother. "It won't go wrong. I can't let it go wrong." "How can you be so sure?" "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not fighting for money, for business, for properties. I'm fighting for love, and love moves mountains, Philip. It's always been that way." That night after Philip left, Richard went up to check if Lily was sleeping. He found her awake, looking at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Richard, if I have to leave, will you be okay?" The question caught him off guard. "Why are you thinking about that?" "Because I know things are difficult because of me, and I don't want you to suffer." Richard sat on the edge of the bed and held her hand. "Lily, Listen carefully to what I'm going to say. There is no scenario where you have to leave, none, understood? But the uncle, everything will be fine with the uncle, and if it's not, we'll find another way, as many ways as necessary. Because you're my daughter now, in heart, in soul, in everything that matters, and a father doesn't give up on his child. Never. Lily snuggled in his arms, and Richard felt that, regardless of the obstacles that might still come, he had found the strength he needed to face any battle. The love he felt for that brave girl had transformed not only his life, but his very soul. The final twist came from where Richard least expected. On the morning of the decisive hearing, when everyone was preparing for a prolonged legal battle, Robert Wilson appeared at the courthouse with a different expression. The hostility of previous meetings was gone, replaced by something that seemed like fatigue mixed with resignation. "Can I talk to you before the hearing?" he asked Richard and Dr. Mitchell. In a reserved room, Robert sat heavily and sighed deeply. "I've been thinking a lot these past weeks. I went to Lily's school, observed her from a distance. I saw how she laughed with her little friends, how she seemed secure, happy." Richard felt his heart accelerate but didn't dare to interrupt. "Then I went to talk to my brother Mike. He told me things I didn't know about how difficult it was for him to take care of her alone, about the fears, the sleepless nights, the guilt for not being able to give her what she deserved." Robert looked directly at Richard. "And he told me how you appeared in her life, how you changed everything." Dr. Mitchell remained silent, letting Robert speak. "I thought I was fighting for what was right for family. But family isn't just blood, is it? Family is who cares, who stays, who loves, and I can see that you truly love her." Richard felt his eyes water. "I love her more than my own life." "Then I won't contest the adoption anymore. I'll sign whatever is necessary for her to stay with you." Robert paused. "I just ask one thing, that she knows the Wilson family will never forget her, that if one day she wants to know her origins, her roots, we'll be here." "Always," promised Richard. "She'll always know where she came from and how many people love her." When they entered the courtroom, Lily was sitting between Philip, who had become a constant presence in recent weeks, and Mike, who had asked to be present on the most important day of his daughter's life. She wore the blue dress that Richard had bought for the occasion and held in her hands a small teddy bear that Philip had given her. The judge, Martha Stone, had followed the entire process with characteristic rigor, but also with the sensitivity of someone who understood that behind the papers were human lives in transformation. "This case caught my attention from the beginning," she began, "not only because of the uniqueness of the circumstances, but because of the evolution that I could follow through the reports. Rarely do we see such a positive and natural adaptation between people who met by chance." Richard held his breath as the judge continued. "The reports from the social worker, the psychologist, the school teachers, all converge to the same conclusion. Lily Wilson has found not just a home but a true family, and Mr. Richard Harrison has discovered that being a father goes far beyond biological ties." The judge addressed Lily directly. "Lily, do you understand what's happening here today?" "Yes, Ma'am, Richard is going to be my father officially, and I'm going to be his daughter forever." "And is that what you want?" Lily looked at Richard, then at Mike, at Robert, at Philip. "I want to be Richard's daughter, but I also want Daddy Mike to continue being my father, and Uncle Robert to be part of my family, and Uncle Philip to be my real uncle. Can it be like that?" The innocent question brought smiles to all the faces present. The judge nodded kindly. "It can be exactly like that, dear. Family has no size limit." "Then," continued Judge Stone, turning to Richard, "considering all the elements presented, the favorable opinions, the exemplary adaptation of the minor, and most importantly, considering that the best interest of the child is what should prevail, I grant the adoption request." The sound of the gavel hitting sealed officially what the heart had known for months. Lily Wilson became Lily Harrison in a legal document, but in reality, she had been Richard's daughter since that first night at the Golden Palace restaurant. The hugs that followed were wet with tears of happiness. Mike hugged Richard and whispered, "Thank you for taking care of our girl." Robert shook his hand and said, "Welcome to the Wilson-Harrison family." Philip picked Lily up and spun her around, making her laugh like a normal 9-year-old child. But it was when Lily ran into Richard's arms and whispered, "Hi, Daddy," for the first time, that he knew he had found the purpose he had been looking for his entire life. In the months that followed, the family's life settled into a new and wonderful rhythm. The Beverly Hills mansion, once silent and formal, filled with life. Lily transformed one of the rooms into an art studio, Philip started having dinner with them every Friday, and Mike came to visit his daughter every 2 weeks, always bringing stories from his construction sites and receiving drawings she made especially for him. Richard's company, far from suffering from his new priorities, thrived under his more humane and balanced leadership. Helen Rodriguez admitted that she had never seen her partner so focused and creative as after he became a father. "Having a reason to come home changed everything for you," she observed during a meeting. Richard smiled. "Having a reason for everything changed everything for me." Lily's school became an integral part of their lives. Richard never missed a parent meeting, a presentation, a science fair. He became a reference among other parents as the man who had transformed his life to give love to. A child who needed it. On a Saturday afternoon, 6 months after the adoption was finalized, Richard found Lily in the garden, drawing under the apple tree. He approached silently and saw that she was making a portrait of the family. Him, her, Philip, Mike, Robert, all together in a colorful house. "What a beautiful drawing," he said, sitting beside her. "It's our family," explained Lily. "The teacher asked us to draw our family, and I didn't know if I could put so many people. But then I thought family is who we love, right?" "Exactly. And how many people do you love, Princess?" Lily counted on her fingers, including even the cook, the driver, her favorite teacher, her school friends. "Many people, Daddy. Does the heart grow when we love a lot?" Richard laughed, hugging his daughter. "Yes, it does. And you know what else? The more love we give, the more love we get back." "Then I'm going to love the whole world," declared Lily with the seriousness of someone making an important promise. "And the whole world will love you back," assured Richard. That night, after putting Lily to bed and listening to her prayers, where she always thanked for her big and colorful family, Richard stood on the porch looking at the stars. Philip appeared with 2 cups of coffee and joined him. "What are you thinking about?" asked his brother. "About how a 5-minute decision can change an entire life. If I hadn't invited Lily to dinner that night..." "But you did, and you know..." "Why? Because deep down you two were looking for each other without knowing it. She needed a family. You needed a greater purpose. It was destiny." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "You know what's most incredible? I thought I was saving her, but actually she saved me." "You saved each other," corrected Philip. "And now you've saved our whole family." When was the last time all the Harrisons-Wilsons gathered for something happy? It was true. Lily's arrival had healed old wounds, brought distant people closer, created new traditions. She was the gravitational center that had united a constellation of lonely hearts. A year after the adoption, Richard organized a surprise party to celebrate Lily's family anniversary. He invited everyone who had been part of the journey. Dr. Mitchell, the social worker, the teachers, school friends, even the waiter from the Golden Palace who had witnessed the first meeting. When Lily blew out the candles on the cake, wishing that all children in the world would have families who loved them, Richard realized that he had built something much bigger than he had imagined. Not just a family, but a community of love that expanded in concentric circles, touching the lives of everyone around. That night, after the guests had left, Lily found Richard tidying up the living room. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Princess, do you ever regret inviting me to dinner?" Richard stopped what he was doing and knelt in front of her. "Lily, listen carefully. That night at the restaurant was the most important night of my entire life. It was when I discovered what I was born for, to be your father. So no, I've never regretted it. Not for a second." Lily smiled and hugged him tight. "I was born to be your daughter too, Daddy. I'm sure of that." And there, in the living room, illuminated by the remnants of the party, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and the signs of a life full of love, Richard Harrison knew that he had found true happiness, not the happiness that is bought or conquered, but the one that is built day after day, gesture after gesture, choice after choice. Lily had entered his life like an unexpected storm and transformed it into a flourishing garden. And like all true miracles, this one had begun with the simple decision to open his heart and say, "How about we eat together?" Because sometimes the simplest question can change the entire world. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that Richard and Lily's story has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched ours. This journey about unconditional love, chosen family, and second chances reminds us that the most important encounters in life can happen in the most unexpected moments. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video. We have prepared a special playlist with equally touching stories that you can find by clicking here beside. Every day we bring unique narratives that celebrate the complexity and beauty of human life. Tell us in the comments, what moment in Richard and Lily's story moved you the most? Your messages are the fuel that inspires us to continue telling these stories of love and hope. Don't miss our next content, because each story carries within itself the power to transform hearts and renew our faith in human kindness. Until next time, and remember,